Hi everyone, it's from the cauldron. No, from the crow's nest, not from the cauldron. From the cauldron is our business name. From the crow's nest, 26th of June, 2019, and today apparently is National Writers' Day, or so I've been told. So I thought I'd do how to write and where it comes from. Maybe it should be called how not to write. I'm probably the worst person to do something like this, but here we go. Although some people have asked me what my, I guess in inverted commas, what my my process is, and it's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, for some people, I guess it comes quite easily, doesn't it? But writing for me doesn't. It's quite a tricky business for me. I mean, I come up with lots and lots of ideas, but actually turning them into something that's meaningful and written and something that people can read. Oops, so sorry about that. Is a little bit tricky. Oh, you can't see my face, can you? That's a bit rude. Let's try this a little bit differently. So for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm adjusting the microphone so people can see my face. My beautiful face for those that are watching. So, how do I do it? How does writing happen for me? Well, I find it very difficult. I'm not a prolific writer. When I do write, it comes in fits and starts. I find that although I have a lot of ideas, I sometimes just can't turn them into anything substantial enough for people to read. That's why I'll never actually be able to write a novel, I don't think, because I don't think I can write great, huge stories, epic stories. What I can do is tend to write sort of bits of flash fiction or short stories. I seem to be okay at doing that. But I break the very first rule. I don't plan anything. In fact, the very first story I wrote for when I started this project, I sat down. I was actually getting my car washed at the car wash. Ones where the people come out and they do the detailing and everything. So I was actually getting the car washed, and I was sitting in. There's like a little area where you sit and wait for the car. So I sat there and I'd seen a photo of two swans, and by an Isle of Wight photographer, and I'll put links down below. And I thought, that's a really interesting photo. I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and I thought there's a story there that needs to be told. So I started off with the idea of just these two swans, and for those that haven't read the story or heard me read it, I don't want to give too much away. Excuse me. But I wanted one of the swans to go on a journey. So it was about a journey, and I spent 30 odd minutes just sitting there, coming up with the idea, and then got home and wrote it. And that's how I came up with the first story. And that was a lot of planning for me. Generally what I'll do is I'll just sit down and I'll write. I don't plan it. I don't know where the story's going. I don't even necessarily know. There's our friend the train. Right on schedule. 1:30. For those that are new here, there's a train that passes by my house. And I seem to schedule my podcasts right when the train is going by. And I used to be really panicky about it, but these days I just let it. It's like my friend. And when I've got the windows open and things, the wind blows, the train sound goes by, and it's a 1930s tube train, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, back to writing. So that was kind of the most planning, and then But mostly I will just sit down and I'll write. I'll come up with an idea and I'll just write. Or sometimes I never even write the story down. It's sitting up here in my noodle. And I'll recount it and I'll tell it to people, but I never write it down. And I guess that's really bad practice because one day I might forget. So maybe I should start writing them down. I think because I'm inherently lazy. But I don't plan these things. I find that if I try and plan a story, it never pans out. If I start off with an idea, I can't get it to go anywhere. And then when I try and write it, it's very difficult. It feels contrived. The story doesn't come out. Whereas if I sit down and just let it come out organically, then the story goes somewhere. So I guess that's how I have to write. But a lot of the times I just tell a story. Sometimes I'll just tell a story off the top of my head, and it will grow over time and change, and little bits get placed in there. And where do those stories come from? Well, that's a really good question, I ask myself. Really good question, Paul. Where do they come from? I don't know. Sometimes I'll just be sitting somewhere and it'll just come to me. Sometimes I'll see something that just sparks a little story. Sometimes I'll see a grave. A couple of times I've seen graves and I've just thought, what's your story? How does that work? How did you get there? What did you do? What was your story? Where are you now? And the story will be complete contrivance. And then there are the acorns of stories. Things that have been told to me many, many years ago by my grandparents, my grandmothers mainly. Little flashes of story that deserve something more, deserve to be turned into something greater than it actually is. It's all very well telling someone that there's a dragon that lives underneath the island. Excuse me. But how did that dragon get there, and why is the dragon there, and why? And I guess that's the big thing. I ask myself why. Now, I'm not saying this is how you should do it. I'm saying this is probably how you shouldn't do it. If you're going to write, then I think don't do all my bad habits. But this is how I've always done it. You know, I wrote a lot when I was a child, when I was younger, in my teenage years. I spent a lot of time. This gain is quite low. Let's see if I can get that higher. I'll turn that up a bit. How's that? I don't know if anyone can hear me. If anyone can notice the difference. Yeah, so I wrote a lot as a child, as a teenager, and I guess it really comes down to what it is that the story that you're trying to tell. And as I said, I wrote a lot, and then something happened in my life which meant that writing didn't become a priority, and it was not an important thing. And it's only been the last 2 years that I've really got back into it. So I guess what I'm saying is I probably break every rule. I don't know what the rules are. I probably do everything the wrong way. I have never been taught how to write or the right ways of doing things. Take, for instance, I wrote a book, the Christmas book, as some of you know, and I wrote that on a whim. someone asked if I knew any sort of quirky sort of Christmas traditions, and I did. And then I thought, hey, maybe I'll put this in a book. And we're now talking, I think it was in November last year. And then I asked people would they like to buy it, and suddenly I had sort of 50 orders for this book, and I thought, crikey, I have to do it. So I wrote the book in 2 weeks. To be ready to get out to everyone by Christmas. And I had an enormous amount of fun doing it. I thought it was amazing. But probably the very wrong way of doing it. So don't do anything that I say. Probably do the opposite. That's the best thing. Take your time, plan, talk to a professional writer, not to some idiot like me. So I guess the moral to this episode is I didn't really need to do it because all my advice is terrible. But for those of you that are interested in where I come up with these things, this is how it works. Sometimes I'll start with a photo, and then I'll build it. The little bits of wisdoms that I put out there are sometimes just sparked by me walking somewhere and seeing something, taking a photo of it and then coming back, or just the weather, or how I'm feeling, or the time of year. So I don't know where it I guess in some way I don't know where it comes from or how it comes, and I'm just grateful that people seem to enjoy it. So there's a little bit of insight into how I come up with things and come up with stories, and I guess the stories come from where I am and what I feel, and touching the ground and breathing the air and seeing the sea and seeing the earth and seeing the seasons change, feeling the weather and all those things, and being inspired by our beautiful little island. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been more a cerebral dump than anything else. I haven't been telling you anything particularly interesting, just me vomiting out stuff. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.